streaming, I guess. Put my hair up. It is a mess. Actually, I was wearing a wig before, and it just got too tight on my head. So now we have this situation. Alright. How is everybody? You guys are doing well. Get some glasses on. Just feel like my eyes are just need a little extra help today. But we shall see. Might have to switch to the sunglasses. We shall see. Alright. How are we doing with these? Is this working? Let me know if you guys can hear me. Because I had to redo the setup. And awesome. You know, it's okay. We're good. Just relaxing. That's alright. So these lunch break live streams don't really have any format to them. So we just get to hang out until somebody joins us. Let me tell you, that is a weird time. Because I think when you start to be a teacher, some of the stuff you plan for, okay, well, what do I do if my kids do this? And what do I do if they do this? And you kind of don't plan for, what do I do if my students don't respond at all? So for anyone that is thinking about teaching or doing anything with especially with little kids or something, but even the older students, you know, they understand everything coming out of your mouth, but they just don't respond. I kind of bring that up sometimes for my older students because I will start off the class with, hey, how you guys doing? Any plans for the weekend? Anything like that? And they don't say anything. And I just ask them, like, when is that ever okay that somebody's asking you, how are you? And you just stone-faced, you know? I'm not saying it because I just like to hear myself talk, and I want to know how they're doing. So that is something. How are you guys doing? You guys have any weird questions or difficult questions? We had to deal with some difficult questions today in AP Psychology about sex, sexuality, and like the physiological aspects of sex and the psychological aspects of sex. And just how, you know, how sexuality is a complex thing, and, well, how do you think it's viewed in Korea, because that's where we are. So if you guys are interested in asking any of those difficult questions, I will be doing a video based on one of the questions my students had asked, because it is a bit of a difficult question. And it just has to do with, well, what, you know, I feel guilty judging people, but I don't know why I do it, you know. And that was what the student had asked privately, because they can send these private messages to me, and, you know, I thank the student for being open about it. It is difficult to have those feelings when you feel like I feel like I should know better, but I just don't, and I don't know why my brain is making me think these things. So it is you know, some difficult questions. So if you guys did want to ask any of those difficult questions, feel free to do so, you know. Otherwise, just enjoy the cottagecore background. Got a bit of a cottagecore sort of inspired look going on here. I'll be honest, at the end of the day, when I take down my hair and everything, I'm just like, oh yeah, that's what I look like. I feel like a totally different character when I have my hair up like this, you know. I'm wondering, does it age me? I'm okay if it does, but I'm just curious, does it age me? I feel like I don't look like older. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Do you read any fiction? Do you have a favorite author? I don't really read fiction. I'm just not a fiction reader. I like to read, yeah, I guess, what kind of stuff? I don't know how you would describe it. Documentary books, I guess is how you would describe it. Um, True accounts or those types of things. I am interested in perceived true accounts as well. Like conspiracies type stuff I do like to read. Um, but a lot of the stuff I read just tends to be things like on the internet, not necessarily books. I do use Audible. I like it because I don't have to read. I have a hard time just sitting and staring at a book or staring at a screen. I tend to fall asleep. I don't know why. Just looking at a bunch of words, I just doze off. It's very difficult for me. So I like Audible that I can listen to stuff. Um, I could recommend A Universe from Nothing by Lawrence Krauss. I'm gonna re listen to um, Demon Haunted World by Carl Sagan. I don't know, the first time I was listening to it, it just seemed a bit, I don't know, almost condescending. And other people I haven't heard anybody else say that about the book, so I'm thinking maybe I just maybe wasn't in the right frame of mind when I was listening to it. So I always give things like a chance again. Some people say, well, I'll taste anything once, and I say, no, I'll taste anything twice, because maybe I didn't get a good one the first time. So I always try to do that. Another one that I really liked was Don't Sleep Here, There Are Snakes by Daniel P. Everett. That one he did narrate, but his other book on Audible about the history of language, that is narrated by a guy who almost sounds like a robot. I really am having a hard time just listening to it. But the book, like the contents of it, is really good. Yeah. The only like fiction stuff I read is a little weird, like Catch 22, that kind of thing. Yeah. I look like Lizzie Borden. Okay, well, I mean, she was not bad looking, right? So that's not a bad that's not a bad thing. What's the craziest conspiracy theory you've heard? You'll have to quantify crazy. Crazy as unbelievable, crazy as the most shocking or most unexpected. What do you mean by crazy? That is I guess a question I have to ask. One of my students is really interested in like arguing with flat earthers, and he keeps sending me these links to Discord places for flat earthers to have these discussions. I'm not sure why. I think he does it just like, hey, get a laugh out of this. But also, I think he respects the amount of information that I have and my way to explain stuff. He comes to me with a lot of different types of questions. We had a discussion about the concept of time as a physical dimension, and these are just some interesting just discussions we've had. So I think he respects the amount of information that I have and kind of wants me to share that with the flat earthers. And he has asked me, have I ever had a real discussion with a flat earther? And I'm going to answer him because I just didn't have time, but yes. And I kind of was running out of time talking to this person, but my big question was, if the earth was flat, why do we have different time zones? And they tried to explain this model. Let me show you if I can find it here. Flat earth time zone. Yeah. So there's this idea that the sun's light, you can kind of see, just kind of goes like that, which of course doesn't really make sense for this type of model, because sometimes you do see the moon at the same time as you see the sun. I just saw that yesterday. The other issue is that, there's not, light diffuses. There's not like a hard stop line where light stops reaching. And I tried to explain that if, even if it was so tiny that I couldn't see the light, so far, because they believe the sun is very small and inside the dome, if they accept the idea of a dome, which is a Abrahamic model. So that's where they get it from. It's actually I said, well, even if it's so tiny, I should be able to just take out a telescope and see it at night. And I can't. So try to explain that, and they were going off about something and trying to ask if well, are you a Christian? Are you an atheist? And I just kind of, I knew whatever way I answered it, it would be wrong. If I said, well, I'm a Christian, then they would say, well, you should read your Bible better, blah, 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 bad Christian. And if I said I was an atheist, they would say, well, that's why you're part of the great satanic, blah, 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 blah. And so I didn't really want to answer that. And I just said, that doesn't, my religious beliefs or lack thereof don't make your statements more true or less true, right? You can just provide the evidence. But the big thing was that they were kind of badgering me, and I said, well, I have to go to work. And they were mocking me for having a job, that I was part of the, I don't know how to describe it, the government, I don't know, some kind of conspiracy to keep people whatever. And I was just like, are you really getting on me for being, like I said, I'm a teacher, I contribute knowledge to society by explaining concepts and stuff. Like, it's not like I work in fast food or something where I'm contributing unhealthy things to society necessarily. You can argue whatever that, but I'm just saying, like, in the most like fundamental or basic kind of way that you could boil that down. And he just kept going on about how I was brainwashed and stuff, and I just thought, wow, this is the caricature of the flat earther. This is a person who is unemployed and just hangs out yelling at people on the internet because they don't have an education in this capacity. And I just thought that is unfortunate. But I will say I've talked with more so-called Illuminati people than I have with flat earthers, which I guess is a thing in and of itself. I hope you guys are enjoying my very toned down voice today. I do want to avoid a migraine today, so that's it. Crazy as in most unreal, I guess. The most unreal type of conspiracy that I have heard, belief that I've heard, would have to do with the fact, or the idea that we are all alien souls from different star systems that have chosen to inhabit these bodies on this planet for a specific experience. That just seems really outlandish to me. It's not a conspiracy, it's just a belief, but it just seems really outlandish to me because of, what a weird cosplay. What would you even call that? Like an amusement park, but it's life and it sucks. So that's probably the most unreal belief that comes to mind. The most unreal conspiracy theory, I would say, is the Men in Black. Do you guys know who the Men in Black are? See, by far the most believable is that David Miscavige had at least 3 people killed during his wife and his mother-in-law. Yeah, there's some interesting ones about that. An hour too early for lunch, but hi. Not for me, but maybe for you. Do you think the government is still doing stuff like MK Ultra? So stuff like MK Ultra, like very, very similar to MK Ultra in terms of attempted mind control? Or do you mean stuff like MK Ultra in terms of doing experiments on people without their knowledge or consent? Let's see. Hello, Willfilify. Alien Souls, yeah, I know. It's a movie. What is a movie? Which one is a movie? Scary to remember when I was growing up. I was taught you can't see the moon and sun at the same time. Also, blood is blue before being exposed to oxygen, taste zones, and argue these a lot. Yes, there's a lot of stuff that we've heard. Also, like milk is good for strong bones. That's another one. Don't go outside when it's cold or you'll catch a cold. That's another one. Wet hair gives you wet hair. If your hair is wet and you go outside when it's cold, then you will catch a cold. That's another one. No, I meant too early for me. I gotcha. That's all right. You can have a coffee. that'll be something to enjoy. Um, yeah. So which were you thinking? In terms of that, we're doing conspiracy things. We are. Why not? What are your favorite ones and stuff? We started off with this like a cottagecore background. I thought about doing the military one. That seemed to intrigue some people that we had never had join us before, so that was pretty cool. But I didn't want to like rely on that. You know what I mean? Are you guys able to hear me okay? Because I know that I am talking a lot more quietly than usual. Just want to make sure. I knew about seeing the moon during the day because Dot used to see the moon during full daylight all the time. Yeah, I think summer, I think we were probably taught about that because of that part in the Bible where the sun rules over the day and the moon rules over the night, which is a bit weird when you think about it because they would have had that. They would have had that experience, that the moon is visible during the day back then too. So you guys can hear me fine. That's good. That's good. Did I reach like that soothing sound? Did I reach that level? Is that the voice level we're talking in? Where you could just kind of like listen to a person talk. Some people have really, really good like podcaster voices. Or a voice that's good for radio, and I've always envied that. Yeah, I think like, oh gosh, why did I forget his name? AM Coast to Coast. What is is it Art Bell? Is that his name? Art Bell? AM Coast to Coast. Yeah, the zone out voice, right? And so that's why I kind of wonder, is that why we're not getting as many questions come back? I've been told that I have a face that's made for radio. That's unfortunate. That's okay. You have a face that's made for infantry. If you're the Sean that I remember. That's okay. I have a face that's made for jars. Crayons. There we go. That was in public school. In public school, really, that's unfortunate. I got in trouble for arguing that I've seen it. Oh my golly goodness. That's not great. PSYOP now. Well, that's cool. That's true. That's true. So a face that's made for PSYOP. Does that mean your face blends in? That's what I was going to do counter intel for re-enlisting, but then I got medically separated. My face can kind of blend into some different areas. I don't know. What race would what regions could I blend into? And please note that I go from white passing to terror alert orange after a couple hours in the sun. Cecil Baldwin of Night Vale fame. Does he have a good voice? Italy, yeah, a lot of people had guessed like Italy, Greece. My pronunciation's pretty good when I am able to pick up parts of a language. So, but I guess any place in Europe, North America, or South America, since those places do have sort of a mixed group, and Australia and New Zealand perhaps. You can pull off Jordanian, yeah, and we can see. Do I have fabric? It's like I always have something near me. It's like the one time I don't, because it fell because of my kitties. My kitties are bad. Come on, you. It's this really nice cloak I have, but it fell down because of my kitties. Alright. Let me just try to lift this. Okay, cool. Let's put it on. Let's get this hooded thing here. Cool. Okay. And then I have to see myself in this like OBS thing. Do we have a way to move? Yes. Okay. So this works out a bit well, doesn't it? So just imagine that perhaps with a darker eyeliner. And of course, again, my skin does get very dark in the sun. So that kind of works out. And there just goes all of the hair. Any of the hair we had hoped to control has now gone everywhere. If I saw you in Iraq and Afghanistan, you would blend in for sure. Yes, yes, absolutely. There's a reason for that. Spoiler warning, right? Um, let's see. America, yeah, I know. As a Maori, I'd say you couldn't pull off any New Zealand, or couldn't pull off New Zealand. I just mean New Zealand as a place where there are different groups of people, not indigenous like Maori. I will say though, I have a very dominant facial structure, but I would say perhaps Wounded Monk, perhaps you and I have more in common culturally than my facial features might reveal, make you lead you to believe otherwise. Is that how I want to phrase it? Yeah, so perhaps we would have more in culturally than that, which is surprising. It's surprising for a lot of Korean people here because I don't look East Asian or Southeast Asian, but culturally, there is that overlap, and genetically as well. I just don't look it, so it is interesting, yeah. Okay, see, so you said look at you say, oh, I'm white and looking, and you're 36% Maori. Okay, so what? You're telling me I can't blend in, but you can? I'm a weak mix maybe, but it wouldn't be obvious. Yeah, every time. So maybe you have the same situation then. Whenever you go to like a gathering, and people don't know you necessarily, they'll be like, do you know what I'm talking about? They use their white people voice with you, and then you have to respond in some way with your accent, and then they're like, oh, sorry about that. Let's see. You are beautiful. Some of you are always blowing smoke up my butt, but don't let me stop you. Okay. You have a face that blends in a lot of places. Yes, I would say so. The Korean language is difficult. Just saying hi is 5 syllables. It's a lie. The book way to say hi is 5 syllables. But usually, I don't know, usually a lot of Koreans just like start talking to each other. Like if I see a friend, then I would say, "Hey, how you doing?" But I don't know, the Korean interactions, it doesn't, they just kind of start without it. At least that I've seen, or that I've overheard, or that I've been part of. It's just like what are you doing today, or are you hungry, or something like that. Do you want to go to a cafe? So we kind of just start off that way. You can also say the shorter version, which is 안녕, but it's not that's not as used. It's not like hello versus hi. There's a whole like cultural layer to it. Wounded Monk. I get that all the time, and then I start saying stuff in Maori, and they're like, huh, yeah. I completely understand what you mean, and that is, that ain't it. So this is my white people voice, by the way. It's yeah. I remember. I don't even know if I could get a job in Korea with my native accent. But some people have mentioned my they don't know where my accent's from, or it sounds kind of muddled, and I just tell them, yeah, it's because it's fake. It's a fake accent. So that is, that's why. But when my mom had called, I was visiting a friend, and my mom had called, and when we hung up the phone, my friend was like, what the hell was that? Oh, it's my mom. No, why did you sound like that? I'm like, oh yeah, that's how I sound. So yeah, I don't know, I guess, yeah. When the students, like when we start talking and I start talking quickly, or I'm trying to make a joke or something, the students will hear it come out very much. Or if I'm trying to like imitate the aunties, you know what I mean? Then that comes out immediately. It was, yeah, that was actually I got these glasses because they remind me of one of my aunties. And it's just, yeah, it's its own thing. I was always told I stick out like a sore thumb and I have a memorable face. It's good to have a memorable face, though, but I would say that, yeah, I would notice you, I think. I think that's the benefit with my face. I don't think I'm noticeable or memorable because I get, you look like so and so a lot. Hey, are you so and so? Not like you resemble a celebrity, but more like some people keep staring at me and saying, I'm sorry, you look really, really similar. You look like one of my aunts. And I just had to check that you weren't. Or they'll say, yeah, you look like my cousin's friend or something, and they'll think that I was them. So I have a face that's, I guess it's, I don't know, there was a mold. Some people just get, I guess it's the, what is it, the factory default or something. Maybe that's my face, you know. Yeah. Those are basically my great grandma's glasses. Yeah, my grandma had glasses like this too. And I just remember her like all the time with her like mega candle. Do you know what I'm talking about? She was, you know, because we were invaded by the Catholics, and so she had her like mega candle, and she was always saying the rosary. You know, I come pray. Hey, you gotta come. You have to come pray. If you don't pray, Jesus will be very unhappy with you. So, let's sit down. You gotta pray. Grandma, I want to go do this thing. It can wait. You know, she always would have that, that kind of attitude. She was a very lovely, lovely old lady, but she died rather young. So that always makes me wonder, you know, what age will I die naturally? Assuming I don't get, like, crushed by a train or something. Hello, fellow Menno. How are you doing? Hello, Test. Sean says, I was in downtown Seoul a few years ago. You should have said hello, I was here. The style of the hipsters there was like the USA circa 1985, puffy hair, rolling the cuffs in their pants, etc. Yeah, I was really shocked when I came here. I felt that the style here was almost like it got stuck in 1995. And I remember I rewatched that movie, The Craft, and I'm just like, man, that really was 1995. That really got stuck here. So that's kind of how I see it. It hasn't really changed very much actually since I've been here, which is really interesting because I've been here for like 10 years, and for a style to not change much. The cool thing though is that the clothing material, it's done really well, so it can look really like snug and slim and fashionable but still be quite warm, or it can actually be very cooling, so you could wear stuff that actually makes you feel cooler than if you were not wearing anything. So for example, I do have to wear UV sleeves in the summer when I go to work, and I thought at first this is going to be very hot and uncomfortable, but it's actually cooler wearing the UV sleeve than if I didn't wear it. That's pretty cool. Let's see. I had a few annoying encounters here in Australia with white people bad-mouthing Maoris around me, and I'm like, bruh, yeah. That's interesting. I think the closest thing I would have, because actually a lot of people in the United States don't even know where I'm from, and when I say it, they're like, what is that? I'm like, okay. So it's, you know, they don't even know. But I think the closest is that I do have some family members that are black, and for some reason some people think it's okay to badmouth black people, and it's so frustrating because, you know, so I always say something, always. I don't accept that. I think exposure to stuff, I think, is a good way to get rid of uninformed ideas. Education kind of helps to get rid of those, right? But you know, you don't want to do it in a way that shuts people off. So you do have to do it in not a nice way necessarily, but I don't know. There's a way to do it, and I don't know how to phrase it. Stern, but sensitive. I don't know how to describe it really. But it is, yeah. Like, for example, when I've had a student get very upset with me because they had failed their exam, so they were really upset and yelling at me. Um, and I just said, I understand that you are upset. However, at this moment, there is nothing that we can do. I think that it would be a good idea to take a break and, try to do your best to enjoy the winter break. When we come back, if you do have some things that you want to discuss, we should talk about that. But right now, I think that it's too sensitive of a topic to discuss calmly. So I will talk to you next time. And they knew that I wasn't mad at them, but and then they knew that I wasn't saying anything bad or judging them harshly, but at the same time they got the message that maybe I did cross the line. Yeah, so that's good. And that student later asked me to write a letter of recommendation to get into different universities, and they did. They got into 3 different universities, and I'm very, very proud of them. So it's a good time. Good evening, oh pal pal. I used to be reasonably attractive, but I don't know. I felt like an alien. Well, you can be an attractive alien. That's okay. But I do know what it is to feel like an alien. I know your racial identity goes somewhat unspoken, but all I'm getting from that accent is Hawaiian. I know is a lot of overlap with some of the accent. How do I want to say that? I think if Spain invaded you, there's some overlap in that accent. I don't know. But Spain didn't really invade Hawaii. But like it sounds similar to like some people from Mexico, some people from the Philippines, some people from Pacific Islands. So it does have that kind of, I guess, vibe to it. Yeah, I don't know. It's something that I wasn't really comfortable discussing, not because of being ashamed of it or anything, but it was just concerned, giving out private information about myself. But I think at this point it's almost like a game. It's sort of like the game. The Craft, I remember liking that movie. What did you think for watching it? I still love the movie. It's kind of dorky, but I just love it. I absolutely love it. And I'm mad that they took it off of Netflix. The Iron Fist in the Velvet Glove? I suppose. But I don't like that image or idea of a fist because I don't... I have to use this frequently with students, and I don't want them to think that the glove could come off, I think when you're confronting some random person in public, maybe that would be a better description, yeah, because at some point I guess a glove could come off. But yeah, not when I'm talking to my students, and that's a lot of my human to human interaction in person. That's not online. It's just with the students. I've been curious to learn the psychology behind conspiracy theories. Dealing with conspiracy theorists is like banging your head against the wall. Logic just beads up and rolls off of them. From what I can understand, at least from the people that I've spoken to, and just hearing other people talk about it, that helpful documentary Behind the Curve, it appears that a lot of people were shamed in some way about their intellectual capacity as they were growing up. These are the type of people that perhaps were insulted in school. They were mocked by their parents. Well, how come your sister gets this? How come you don't? That kind of thing. And they felt stupid. And then they found a group that said, you're not stupid. It's everybody else that's brainwashed. And the reason that you didn't understand this stuff is not because you don't understand physics. It's because it's really a lie. And you happen to see through that lie. Good for you. You're the smart one. And I think people really like that, to hear that for the first time. You know, I think a lot of that can actually be found in, for example, the fat acceptance movement. You know, people being told all the time that you're undesirable, you're unattractive, and then this movement saying, no, 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 you're not the ugly one, society is, right? That quote. And I think people can really want to hear about that, but in the same way, both of those things need to be addressed by addressing the root of the issue. The root of the issue is that for whatever reason you didn't understand this thing growing up. Could be you just didn't want to pay attention. It could be you have a different learning style. It could be your teachers and parents were just awful. But the way to fix that is to learn about it now. If you feel unattractive, do something that makes you feel attractive. And if you think your weight is tied to it, ask yourself, is my weight worth maintaining? If not, perhaps it's a time for me to get to a more healthy weight for myself. You know, just saying to yourself, well, I've decided that I'm attractive now. I don't think that really works. Because if it did, I would feel much more lovely. Speaking of Netflix, started binging The Last Kingdom. Really cool about Viking invasion of England. I do recommend, if you can, to check out Kingdom, which is a Korean drama, but it has zombies in it. It's really interesting. It's like a period drama of like the Joseon dynasty, but it has zombies in it, so it's interesting. So it's validation. I mean, I think that's what any group offers, right? And I think that there's also that grain of truth to it as well. Should you believe what the government always tells you? No, right? No, of course not. The government will tell you things that are not true, whether they're deliberate lies or they just made a mistake. So you shouldn't just believe something just because the government says so, but then that doesn't mean to just disbelieve it just because the government says so either. But there's that grain of truth that kind of brings you in. And that acceptance brings you in too, you know. And I think there is a lot of that with any type of group, you know, religious groups, teams, nationalists, you know, any type of group like that. I was actually having this discussion with some of my students in one of our clubs, and we were discussing the concept of cultural appropriation, and the students were talking about the fox eye trend, which they have an issue with because they are Korean students. And so the fox eye trend. And so it's this idea to, I guess, make your eyes not only... there's a difference between makeup, because I asked them, like, well, what's the difference between, you know, putting on makeup and cultural appropriation? They said, no, it's not just the makeup. Notice that they're pulling their eyes. And that's something that has been really like a caricature almost of, you know, East Asian people. Okay. And so it was this idea of, well, how could they say that we are ugly and we're not, you know, acceptable as models and actors and stuff, and then here they're trying to appropriate it, blah, blah, blah. What's wrong with their culture? And I said, well, you have to remember that coming from so I have a friend who is right-leaning, Irish white, and is a police officer. And we both served in the military together. We both were very interested in fitness and stuff, and we're very, very close. He's like a brother to me. I'm like a sister to him. And it's really interesting hearing what he has to say, because I know that he's not going to lose his mind and start yelling at me if I question any of his concepts, you know. And so it's interesting to hear it from his point of view. And he says, it's not fair that if I want to teach my daughter about something and to take pride in our Irish heritage, I'm considered a racist for that. But other people are allowed to take pride in their heritage. And one of my students laughed, and I said, well, I mean, it sounds silly, right? It sounds like he's making it up and let's play the victim and stuff, but think about it for a second. If I said, I'm a proud black woman, people would say, okay. But if I said I'm a proud white woman, people would assume that I'm a racist. And I think that things like the Proud Boys and stuff, they take that it's not racist to be proud of your culture, but then they do put it into like a racist context. But I think when people hear that, they feel like, yeah, you know, I want to be proud of my Nordic heritage. I want to be proud of my Slavic heritage, something like that, you know. And it brings them in, and then it gets distorted. And so that's a really unfortunate thing. Yeah. I read there's also a correlation between susceptibility of conspiracy theories and a distrust of authority, and I would agree with that, for sure. And I was talking to that student of mine, and I said, you know, it is unfortunate because there's actually some conspiracy theories that are true. You know, the Iran-Contra scandal. I mean, they're just true. MK Ultra, Project Stargate, Project Blue Book. So there's stuff that really happened. But because the conspiracy theorist has decided to believe in everything, it's become sort of like the boy who cried wolf. So now once they say, aha, I did really find a real one this time, everybody already stopped believing in it. And I told the student, you know, compare that to me and you hearing about that in history class. If I tell you, oh yes, and by the way, this conspiracy theory actually turned out to be true, you would be inclined to believe it because I don't believe in all the conspiracies. And so it does them a disservice, I think, to automatically believe everything's a conspiracy. I also think there is that, I've always found it to be very frustrating because I really want to investigate a lot of stuff. But as soon as I say, if I go to the spiritualist or the cryptid group and I start asking questions, they get mad at me because I'm too skeptical, you're here to troll, blah, blah, blah. But then if I talk to the skeptics and I say, well, maybe we should investigate this stuff or ask ourselves, how come there are reports of ghosts? What are humans having as a shared experience? It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a disembodied soul somewhere, but what could that be as a shared experience? Could it be something in the brain or whatever? They say, oh, you're just one of those people that just believe whatever, you know, one of those woo-woo people. And it's very frustrating because I think we need to keep it very middle ground, you know. It's interesting to look into this stuff, but we also have to be skeptical. And I don't think it's difficult to do necessarily, but perhaps that's just my personality type. Son of Korean mother's friend is always perfect. Is that the like a show? Is that what you're talking about? It's like people don't even mind being lied to anymore. Perhaps. It's a bit shocking that the more information we have, the more misinformation people seem to want to believe. And I guess it could be because I always tell the students, the best part about the internet is you can find anything on there. And the worst part of the internet is you can find anything on there. It's got all of this information, including the information that you want to believe. And so if you're already inclined to believe something, you can find it. And you can find it going into a direction that perhaps you're leaning towards anyway, but didn't know, you know. There's people that find out all kinds of new interests that they've never been exposed to because they get exposed to it online, you know. There's people that are interested in all kinds of stuff. I never thought that I would be interested in embroidery until I saw people doing really cool embroidery stuff, and I thought maybe I could try it. You know, it's an interesting thing. And I think if you're leaning away, like, towards conspiracy theories, and you find something like the flat earth, there's even more extreme ones, and I've heard people kind of make fun of this as like oh, if you hear somebody say a conspiracy theory, you should make up a more extreme one, and the one that they had made up that was more extreme is already an extreme conspiracy theory that some people really believe. It was something about, like, the moon landing was faked, and then the person's like, oh, so you believe in the moon? And they thought that that was so outlandish that nobody would ever believe that, but there are people that believe the moon is fake. So that is an interesting one. My student did ask me, do you think they could have faked the moon landing? And I said, there's the reason that I also mentioned too when you said the most unreal or hard to believe conspiracy theory, and I said the Men in Black. The government is too busy doing stuff or doing stuff the wrong way that they are not going to do extra stuff. Who wants to do extra work? Nobody, right? Nobody wants to do extra work. And I had told the student, people already don't believe conspiracy theorists. They're not going to send the Men in Black to come shut down this one conspiracy person because they stumbled across the truth. Most people are already not going to believe it, even if it was the truth, because they don't believe in these conspiracy theories. They don't have to do anything to stop the truth from spreading. The truth will not spread because the people who took hold of it are these conspiracy nuts, right? These conspiracy theorists. These perceptual, like socially perceived as nuts. That's how I meant it. The government doesn't do all this extra stuff. They're really busy trying to justify spending and keep some stuff together. They will hide some things, but they won't, like, there's some stuff for like national security stuff, but there's not it's too much work. Faking the moon landing would be way too much work for the government. Plus, with the bad, terrible, movie set graphics and stuff, or movie set, not graphics, animatronics. What's the word I'm looking for? Just movie sets. There's no way they really would have been able to pull that off. I mean, look at any video game from the 90s, for example, compared to video games today. The amount of graphic updates that we've had, not only our ability to render stuff with better like applications and programs and whatever, but also just the computing power to handle that. We didn't have that stuff in the 60s. This isn't something we're gonna fake. It's just too, even just the photography just wasn't as good. Do you know what I mean? So it's just so difficult. Yeah. I am going to touch on just maybe one or two more, and then I'm going to head out. Let's see. People perform internet searches to conform their bias. The scientific method works because to disprove their hypothesis. Yeah, actually, so after I had left religion, I had still had this idea that there was a historical Jesus. And somebody told me to prove it. And I said, okay. And I thought it would be quite easy just to find it. And it turns out it wasn't. And I had to change my stance. So I realized a really good way to use internet searches is if you had to prove that you're right to someone that doesn't believe it, what sources are you going to use that are going to convince them, assuming that they are like a neutral person that's just going to follow the evidence? If I find something on a blog that goes with what I believe, that's not something that's going to convince someone who doesn't believe it. I need to find a historical website or something like that to convince someone. So just that's something I try to explain to the students. Try to convince someone who doesn't agree with you. What sources would you use? Those are the sources that you want to put in your essay. So you don't want to use people's blogs and stuff, because they'll use blogs, which is really interesting. I thought that students were taught not to do that. That was one of the first things they asked in my IT BSc. Does the fact that information is so readily available these days necessarily lead to a better informed society? Yeah, more connected society, which is great. There are definitely great benefits, but I would say there's a lot of negative things too. Alright guys, well, I'm gonna head out because my lunch break is over, so I'm gonna go ahead and go back to work. I will see you later. Hopefully I can make some videos today and do some live stream and stuff over the weekend. So tomorrow, which is my Saturday, and then my Sunday, which will be the next day. I will see you guys later. Have a great day, night, morning, whatever it is. Bye.